Hi, everybody. Welcome to PechaKucha INSPIRE the World, London Calling. I'm Mark Dytham over in Tokyo, and I'm going to be hosting this with Abe Rogers in London. I think, sorry, getting a little bit of feedback there. So I'd like to say hi to Abe. Abe, are you there? Can we hear you?
I'm here, Mark, quite definitely. Many miles away.
Wow, it all works. We're here by the seat of our pants, but it's all good. So yeah, we've been running these Inspire the World events since April the 9th, in fact. All of our PechaKucha events around the world stopped, and we went online, and it's been really interesting. And I've been chatting to Abe, and Abe said, why don't we do one from London and have a mix of Japanese people too? So Abe, why don't you say a few things at the beginning?
So I think it's fantastic to be connected to Japan, but not just Japan, also to Mexico. We're trying to spread our wings as far as possible and to wake up as many people early and late as we can. We couldn't quite fit Australia into the time schedule. They were all being a bit wimpish and wanted to stay asleep. But we've tried to gather a real collection of very different people doing different things from different places, from thinkers and campaigners to architects and artists, to artists making signs and communicating in many different ways, to people taking strolls around the city and talking about their discoveries along their voyages. I think my main task during lockdown has been to grow my beard without any intervention and to see how far it went. And I'm now very proud to say that I can hide my mouth entirely.
That's fantastic. That means you don't have to wear a mask. Is that right? You can just, that's the mask, is it? Yeah, you just
it's a self-filtering beard, which doubles up as a mask along the way. Though I do believe Blue has made me a mask, but she didn't bring it today.
I've got mine handy just in case. Yeah. So, okay. So why don't we move on? And I think Abe's going to kick the whole thing off. So we're going to be running this in PechaKucha format. As you probably know, it's a format that Astrid and I devised here in Tokyo over 17 years ago now, and it's spread all around the world to over 1,000 cities. The idea is that you get 20 images shown for 20 seconds each. They automatically forward, so there's no go back one or forward one. It means we all finish on time, unless I talk too much at the beginning. And yeah, we developed it for architects because they tend to talk too much. And this was a way to keep everybody on time. I'll be explaining how it all started towards the end of the evening. But anyway, we'd like to welcome you all to this Inspire project. As I say, this is about our 20th event we've had all around the world. And it's been really interesting. And this is London Calling. And as for people who are just joining, I'm Mark Dytham, one of the MCs in Tokyo, and Abe Rogers is emceeing it from London. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my very, very good friend, Abe Rogers. We've known one another for many years. Abe runs a really fantastic architectural and interior practice in London, and works all around the world in Melbourne, and works extensively with the Maggie centers too, and is one of the board members there, I think. So Abe, without further ado, I'll give it over to you. If you want to say a few words before you start, just let Brian know when you want to start. I should also introduce Brian. Brian is in Hawaii, as you can see. He's one of the main team at PechaKucha HQ and organizes events around the world. And he's also the director for this evening. So if anything goes wrong, it's Brian's fault, but he always smiles and always has got a great thing to say. So without further ado, over to you, Abe.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for such a good introduction. I'm not on the Maggie's board, but I work very closely with them, and we do lots of advisory around that, as well as having finished our Maggie Centre this year. These are such peculiar times, as we all keep saying, and we seem to be spending much of our life living inside these computers. But the interesting thing about that, I guess, is we're all in the same room, and so we don't have the same distance between Tokyo and London and Mexico City. We can all kind of come together. I'm definitely not missing the journeys to the airport, and quite, this opportunity to slightly enjoy things going by. But then, of course, there's incredibly dark sides, and we've seen upwards of 60,000 people die in this country under a really terrible premiership. I think Tokyo, you have done much, much better. And then the other things going on around the world, which are even more disturbing. So it's important we don't get too lost in our little bubbles of comfort, but there are things to enjoy, and the birds tweeting definitely helps. Before I rabbit on too long, Brian, maybe you should bring up my first slide.
Abe, when the slide goes up, it's already running. So it'll just start. So you're off to the races.
So being stuck up on top of land, obviously missing the sea. I'd love to be an octopus with no bones, so I can change my colors without changing my clothes. Just moving around, disappearing into small holes and reappearing in bigger ones. I'm so loyal to my partner, but sadly on top of the world, we've got horrendous racist things happening all across the world. We need to change it. I think we have to assume that we are all racist, like we all have COVID. It's a similar notion. We're only going to get browner, queerer, witchier, louder, stronger. This is a piece of furniture we designed back in 2002, which seems really appropriate now. It's micro office, and it allows you to be as free as the laptop, so you can roam around your office or your home, which is now your office and your home, and they're all one in the same place, with your many different tables flipping around. And I think it's interesting how these early ideas come back in place. This is a piece called The Ladder That Loves the Wall, with my dad sitting upon it. But it's about creating social distance vertically as well as horizontally, because we need to explore all planes, especially in these moments of radical change. This was not designed for spatial separation. This is what we've just designed in Thailand. It's trying to really dissolve architecture and create an architecture which is about the moving of earth and the planting of umbrellas rather than the building of walls. I think as architects and designers, we have to become less physical, and we need to find ways to create more radical solutions, which are more ephemeral and disappear back into the ground. This is a series of bathhouses in work in progress, also in Thailand, purely made from bamboo and 1,000,006 staples, which sits on top of plastic containers. The plastic container is going to be reused, and the rest of the structure just melts back into the water. This is also part of Wonder Fruits, the feasting hall, which is based around a table that contains 265 people, or 66 people eating together. And so as to avoid cutting the circle, we create bridges that arc over. And in the center is extraordinary chefs like Boland cooking wondrous meals, and the people can come together and celebrate it. This is Maggie's that we completed right at the beginning of the COVID virus. We'll come back more to that in a second, but it's a collection of escalating volumes that get redder and redder as they get larger and larger. And it's really designed from inside to out. So the architecture wraps around the interior diagrams, us believing that the space inside is maybe the most important place. The interior is very very tactile, with moments of color, a magical ribbon that pulls you around. There's always space all around you. You can always see ways out. So you can be all together or in intimate corners. This is the Royal Duchess wearing gloves, because this is just when COVID had started at our opening. Not someone we talk to on a daily basis. I think the signs that she had arrived with these gloves made us all know it was coming about. But it's full of moments of color, moments of light, moments of warmth and materials, tactile interventions. It's important to be in dark spaces as well as light. It's important in places like Maggie's to be able to get lost and disappear and think and wonder about what the future is. But through the window, you look out to an amazing garden that Pete Aldorf has designed for us. And since COVID has been happening, we've been working on a rug for the Maggie Centre that my sister, a painter, Harriet Miller, created. And in Morocco, this extraordinary all-women cooperative have been busy making it together. And it arrived the other day, and so here we are just testing it. For Maggie's, we're also designing a collection of furniture which allows you to be apart but together. How to create intimate conversations whilst 2 meters apart. How can we signify a shared space that does make us feel separate? Intimacies at moments when one cannot hug or kiss. Looking at patterns inspired by the wonderful film The Square by the squares that sit outside my local butchers? How can we start to imply these patterns in floors that they start to feel subliminal? It's not demanding that people stay apart, but it can be read in different ways and used at different times along the journey. Of course, having more resources, because so many work is going on hold. We've been doing a series of competitions. This is a student accommodation in India, all made out of timber, super porous, with cross ventilation and double aspects. The outside creating a stance, and the inside a huge public piazza that brings all the people together to meet and discuss, to eat and retreat, to play and think. All the circulation is on the outside, so beyond the architectural envelope, allowing a kind of these winding up streets to flow and come around, streets in the sky, as we've all discussed over many years. This is a small competition we just won in Australia, again during COVID, which is all quite funny, working these things through, but it's based on a giant curtain that runs around the space, that frames the work, that nurtures along the way. And of course, during COVID, you need to find new ways to socially engage. This is a little thing we designed so we can lower glasses to our friends as they come by for drinks. This is my brilliant business partner, Ernesto Bartolini, and lowering him a glass of French wine to enjoy. And I've been cooking endlessly with my now 2-year-old, who can make mayonnaise, who can roll pasta, but like the whole opportunity to get down on the floor, to get away from the surfaces and to really interact in a different way has been delightful. And to see her enjoy the smells. The cinema is something we're massively missing. It's a cinema ArcLight that we finished at the end of last year, which I'd love to go and watch an extraordinary film in this immersive dark environment. But we'll have to wait a few more months until that time comes along. I think that is everything said in a rapid formation of words thrown together, and I hope it makes sense. And look forward to watching others.
I've got my clapping device here, so fantastic, well done. Really, really, really fantastic job. I mean, amazing. In this very difficult time around the world, you've still managed to bring this fantastic energy and passion to projects, and that presentation was really fantastic. Lots of fun.
Thank you so much.
What do you think it's going to mean, Abe, I mean, this conversation can extend forever, but what do you think it's really going to mean for restaurants and places like that? A lot of your work is bringing people together super successfully. Have you been thinking about that at all?
I think one has to, endlessly thinking about it. We just have, I think it's much easier to do it when we have nice weather and we can all sit outside the park in a way. What's been quite interesting is how we've taken over the street. I live on Broadway Market, and it has become this sort of epicenter of London. Queuing has become the new lunch, and everyone hangs out queuing for their vegetables and having their conversations, whether it's, architects and designers that we meet along the way. So I think when it comes down to restaurants, it's going to be quite complicated. And to be certain, I think one thing is wearing masks, but when it becomes very clinical and food is something which is so emotional, and how we all bring those together. But eating outside seems to be certainly a way forward.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more people on bicycles in Tokyo, but bicycles are being sold out. And a lot of flowers sold out as well. There's no cooking things. You can't bake. I think it's the same in the UK too. So it's kind of strange what things.
You can't buy flour. You can't buy toilet paper. You can't buy yeast. And a friend of mine has a bicycle shop, and he's making billions. He says it's crazy. So these are healthy changes, and everyone's becoming a really good cook. I think I'm feeling quite competitive with the cooking.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm going to keep it moving on. I'm going to go to our second speaker. So Sejima-san, who's a super good friend. We've known Sejima-san almost as long as we've been in Japan. Of course, many of you know Sejima-san. She's a Pritzker Prize-winning architect, and with her business partner Rue Nishizawa, they run Sana in Tokyo. Many accolades to their office, won many international prizes and built many fantastic buildings. She's been spending a lot of time at home, or home in the office, I guess, and has managed to build a vegetable garden, I hear. So Sejima, she was wondering what to talk about, and I think that she's going to talk about the projects that are positive and passionate in her life. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Sejima-san. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Thank you, Mark. So now let's
go.
Yes, thank you. So
if you go.
I must start. This is Inujima project, which started 2008. I heard also today maybe the nice opportunity to explain about the Inujima project, because the 2008 Mr. Fukutake invited me to go to Inujima, and this is a kind of first sketch to know by my body to understand the tiny island. And the beginning, he didn't say anything, but just he said he liked to revitalize the very isolated small island by art. And then I started walking the island and started to make a model, and then to understand the scale. But the beginning, I completely couldn't understand real things. But I thought that is one of the project, is a normal project. But gradually, through this the process, I understood it's not just the architecture project, or to design architecture is not a design issue, but more completely related to the social issue. And then through this project, I understand to make architecture with, I must be one person to join the process. Do you understand, Mark? I'm sorry. English is a little bit nervous. And then to show this is the model, and sometimes 20 seconds is too short and too long. And this is somehow to show the result of the project. The architecture and the art are integrated in the landscape. But the first 5 years, I developed sometimes the new architecture, sometimes renovate, and then also try to make new, kind of respect the context of tiny islands, but same time also bring the new something. And then people can enjoy the new type of Inujima, which I like to keep the scale, because this island doesn't the car run, and only the people can walk, and then it is only 1 hour to walk around, and everyone can understand in half day. And then this is a renovation, and then artists also come and to think about how to, this is all of us piece. Also this is always art also show also in the same context. But after gradually I started to think not only the art project, but try to join the making island itself, because I gradually understand that to think about the architecture is to make kind of the island, and the island is almost architecture, and started to research the many places and also all the houses, and then try to make also some space people can stay a little bit the time in this island, because now 20 people are living and average age is 80. So gradually, when 10 years ago, the 50 people were living. So gradually less, but though the visitor will increase. And then this is by Nishizawa is a stay project. So can stay here. And then there is one sharing the space to have a breakfast. And then also, I started one stay project with the colleague. And also this is and this is also that try to keep, this is right, I don't know, I hope that everyone see the renovation, this. And then, without anything that this building disappear. And then this is a Hopi bar. So this also new person came and to join the project, so the renovate by condo, and then this is a weekend bar. So also not only visitor but also people who leave this island can stay, and then move to landscape project, try to make landscape by ourselves, not we, but also some professional person and also the students join and try to make again the path which used before, or try to find the special things. So this show the Mira students sometimes join to renovate or to remove the bamboo, and then also to check the landscape, and sometimes to make a record by paintings. These the many people join to make island, and which is almost like architecture, I believe. And then there is one abandoned greenhouse also using this, and started to think about a new lifestyle and vegetable garden or the filtering system or the many things that started. This showed one view that is a right hand, that the glass house, and then also we made the outside kitchen or the water tank, and now I have more time. But 20 seconds. So for example, this is a kitchen, or this is a biotop, and also you see the chicken, and then started to make using the many materials from the island. And this is the last photos, invited the resident to discuss about the vision of the future in Jima. Is a half of the resident. And I think that through this project, I learned a lot that we can make the space or the society by ourselves. Thank you. Very sorry.
Thank you, Sejima-san. That was fantastic. It's quite interesting looking at that in the light of COVID, because I think it shows this potential of a new type of tourism, a deeper tourism that we've had before, especially as this is an island and you're sort of restricted the numbers of people that can go there, and the way that you can connect with the community. And I think everybody's struggling to know what tourism is, but having a destination like that where you can stay for 3 or 4 days in a very sort of low density was really interesting.
Yeah, and there are many places in the world, this may be low density, but how to respect and how to continue this way. No?
Yes, because it's been interesting with the over tourism in Japan. Kyoto was it was kind of crazy before the pandemic, and now it's kind of deserted. That's kind of a good thing, but it's also made it quite difficult for some of the rural areas in Japan that's lost all tourism, and that's what they survived on. But I think these living projects like you've shown is really interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Abe, do you have anything to say? What's I think you're on mute, Abe. I think you're on mute, mate.
Sorry. I was just going to say that final photograph of everyone eating inside the greenhouse, coming to, I think we're so lacking in sensory engagement at the moment, somehow being kind of in this strange bubble, even though we have more daylight, we have more birds playing. It just makes me feel very, very powerful to be there on the island, eating amongst the vegetables.
I always remembered it was quite powerful eating in your garden, in the pizza oven at the bottom of the garden, and just pulling off all the herbs off of the things, left, right, and center. You got your pizza going there. So you'll have to invite Sejima-san around for one of your top pizzas.
Definitely, but they would now have much more ease.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for putting that together. I know it's a very busy time for you, and you just come off a call with your students in Italy. So thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Over to you, Abe.
So Alice is one of those extraordinary people that seems to have more hours in her day than anybody else's, not only being one of the greatest design writers and thinkers of our time, but also managing to campaign for everything. and to celebrate design in such an elegant way. But I think what she's been doing with Paola around the design emergency has been breathtaking, and at the same time publishing her articles on how design changes the world, and then also starting to educate us about the role of the Black movement and design. So I'm very excited to see what additional things that we're going to discover about her and her work through the next 20 slides. Alice, over to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Abe. Super generous, over generous as ever. So I'm ready to go now. Right, so design emergency, as Abe has said, has been taking up a lot of my time during the pandemic, and it's a collaboration with my friend Paola Antonelli, who's the senior curator of design at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and we established it as a platform through which we can investigate design's response to COVID-19. Now, my own research into this began right at the start of lockdown on my Instagram feed, and in week 1, I decided that for a week I would post every day about an innovative and ingenious form of design in a pandemic. There were so many great ideas by the end of the week that I decided to continue. So this has been going on ever since. But Design Emergency is a joint endeavor with Paola. We're both passionately committed to the idea that the pandemic has given design a chance to prove its value in addressing complex and urgent problems of our time. So we believe this could be very positive in combating old-fashioned stereotypes about it. We're beginning with a series of IG Live interviews, 1 a week, with the leading design figures in the pandemic. And to start, we interviewed Michael Murphy, co-founder of Mass Design Group in Boston, a leading humanitarian designer, and the architect of this, the Butaro District Hospital in Rwanda, built after the Ebola epidemic there. So Michael talked to us about Mass's work in Rwanda and also Lesotho post-Ebola, and also in Haiti after the terrible cholera epidemic there, and how now they're applying the lessons that they learned in those places to redesigning hospitals in New York and elsewhere to combat COVID. The next IG Live was with Alyssa Eckert, the medical illustrator at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia, who with her colleague Dan Higgins designed this. This is the CDC's official medical illustration of the cause of COVID-19, known everywhere in the world, including, I'm imagining, by these two girls in Kenya as the spiky blob. And here is a spiky blob inspired hairdo, sort of vernacular design response from a local beauty salon that gave them what are called coronavirus braids. So as Design Emergency has continued, we've benefited hugely from the work of our friend Frith Kerr, who's done all the incredible graphics for the project. Frith, who's the founder of Studio Frith in London, gave us a design identity that Paola and I both believe perfectly captures the spirit of everything we want to achieve with the platform. One of our features is Pick of the Week, where we choose a design intervention that we really feel has contributed to the design debate on COVID-19. And our first was the fantastic feature in The New Yorker on the ventilator design wars, which have been a key design feature of the COVID-19 crisis. We've also decided that Paola and I will occasionally do double act IG Lives on key themes of the crisis, so we can use lots of different examples. And the first was hacking, like the Javits Center in New York, which was converted, or rather hacked as we see it, into a treatment hospital to alleviate pressure on others. Another brilliant example of vernacular hacking in design in the crisis are these police helmets made by a local artist, Gautam, in the Indian city of Chennai. And this particular police officer, raising awareness of the dangers of COVID, also, as you can see, has a shield and also a lance. But there have been some tragic visualizations of COVID-19, and this is a particularly dreadful one from a casino parking lot in Las Vegas, as it was being converted into a wholly inadequate makeshift shelter where people who'd been evicted from a nearby homeless shelter were expected to sleep for the night. Luckily, there was such an outcry that the city had to provide a proper shelter. Now, another defining theme has been collaboration. So we did an IG Live with the Belgian designer Dries Verbruggen of Unfold, who formed or co-founded a huge collaborative network in Antwerp of creatives from the design and fashion community. Next up was the brilliant Italian information designer Federica Fragapane, who's been experimenting with data visualization, specifically to probe COVID-19's preponderance to prey on the most vulnerable members of society. And Frederica has applied this in many different fields during the crisis. And one is this project for the Overseas Development Institute in London on the role of asylum seekers, refugees and migrant workers in the crisis, specifically because so many of them are making major contributions as key workers. Now, the next important theme that we decided to analyse as a double act was symbolism. So Paula and I each chose our favourite examples or least favourite examples of design symbols that we believe will define the crisis. And one of our favourite ones was the homemade coronavirus piñata, which people have smashed up cheerfully all over the world. And another fantastic pick of the week was the New York Times feature on how to hug during a pandemic, a brilliant example of how instinctively and unknowingly we redesign our behaviour to do something we've all longed to do under lockdown, have a lovely human hug. But there are tragic symbols of the pandemic too, and this is one of them. This is the face of Amy Gould, a British nurse working in a hospital in Doncaster after 13 hours of a critical care shift. Now, this is the damage that poorly designed PPE has caused to her face, the chafing and the blisters. But an increasingly ubiquitous symbol of the crisis is the China aid symbol that you see on shipments of medical supplies and food to countries all over the world. And this to us signifies an important geopolitical shift, the acceleration during the pandemic of China's progress in ousting the United States as the dominant global superpower. So what's coming up next? Well, immediately on Thursday, we'll be looking at an extraordinary ventilator design project in Herat in Afghanistan. But longer term, looking forward to the future, we're going to be focusing increasingly on how design can help us to rebuild our lives and build not a new normal, but a way better normal and all sorts of normals as the pandemic abates. Thank you.
Fantastic. Really, really, really interesting. Abe, why don't you have a... Oh, you're muted again, Abe.
So amateur, sorry.
He's back with the beard.
I'm back with the beard. Where do you think it's going to go next? How are you going to continue the momentum of the conversation?
Well, Paula's argument is that there will be endless emergencies, and so actually we can move from one to another in a sort of predatory, apocalyptic, dystopian sort of way. But in terms of the conversation with design emergency and COVID-19, I think it's hugely important to point out, and you alluded to this earlier, Abe, that in Europe and North America, people are now starting to talk about the crisis abating. That is absolutely not true for many of the most fragile and precarious parts of the world. So in Africa, South Asia, it's barely begun, which is why we're so keen to find out about this amazing project in Afghanistan and the deep difficulties they've had in developing it on our next IG Live. But inevitably, the debate is increasingly going to focus on the future. And we can only hope, after all the loss, all the anguish, the wreckage, the devastation, and the tragedies of this crisis, that there will be a sort of scorched earth approach to moving forward. We all knew that the old system wasn't fit for purpose in oh so many ways. This surely is an opportunity to break with it and to radically redesign our lives for the better.
Yeah, I think also... Go on, Abe. Go on.
No, I truly hope that you're right, and people are not just going to climb back on their horses and ride off with their ill-gotten gains and leave those who are the unstable behind to work out how to get up.
Yeah, I also just think, Alice, there's a lot of learning too from the data you're getting. Certainly here in Japan, we've been quite lucky, and I think it's a cultural thing because we bow. People use masks all the time during the flu season here, so we're still less than 1,000 deaths here. But I think one of the important things that they've done is the way that the government has sequestered hotels as holding spaces. So if you're feeling ill, you go to a hotel. You don't go home. You don't go to a hospital. You stay in the hotel. A doctor will circulate through. And if you get worse, then you get taken up a level. And if you feel better, you go back home. So this is the way we've kept people separated. I think they've got 120,000 rooms, and that's great for the hotels because they're getting paid a bit of money because the government says, "Can we have an option on your room?" So there's lots of learning, I think, and that's going to be an interesting part of
That's
your project.
A great initiative, and a similar one here was, I mean, a rare positive experiment from the current British government was actually to ensure that homeless people were given hotel rooms where they could stay, certainly for the first couple of months of the crisis. And local councils were charged with organising this, which they did very efficiently in the main. And so care workers say that this is literally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help people to rebuild their lives, to sort things out, because their lives are stabilised for a lengthy period of time. So obviously it's with very different objectives, Mark, but could also have a positive outcome.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Alice. That was really interesting. And thank you. I know you're super busy as well. Thank you for finding time. So, Abe, back to you. Mark is up next.
Yeah, Mark is on next. Mark has been making us all feel more secure with his fantastic billboards as art pieces taking over parts of London areas. Sorry. Mark is a brilliant artist, renowned Turner Prize shortlist, and I really think these signals affect our moods, our emotions, and give us a belief in there is a life after COVID.
Okay.
And Mark, at that point, it's over to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Abe. Yeah, so I shall start when. I'm an artist, as Abe says. I'm based in South London. A lot of my work is sited in public spaces, and for the last 10 years or so, I guess that's really been a focus of mine. So I'm engaging in a lot of sites that you might normally find used for commercial advertising. A lot of my projects are kind of born out of interactions with groups of people, and I'm interested in, I suppose, giving voices to people whose voices wouldn't necessarily be heard in the public spaces. So, for example, this is a project made with an advocacy group for refugees and asylum seekers. This is a project I just finished, or partly finished, just before lockdown in Colchester, which was a project using disused shop spaces, and local residents were asked to present questions or about the town in these spaces. I think part of my interest in this way of working is through kind of growing up in this kind of golden age of advertising and coming across billboards like this Saatchi and Saatchi billboard from 1978 and thinking about the kind of influence and power these pieces of advertising came. And also, this is another ad campaign from sort of 1983 onwards for Silk Cut cigarettes, like how the adverts could be these kind of almost kind of spectral or surreal kind of dissonant presence in our streets and around our homes. I've been thinking, I guess we're in a very strange kind of relationship to the public realm at the moment, and I guess I've been trying to talk to my students about art, how this is represented in art. So thinking about some of the artists that have really influenced me. This is Jenny Holzer with this incredible series of truisms from 1978 and 1979. A very different kind of tone in the work of Felix Gonzalez Torres with these series of untitled billboards which take these sort of very personal, touching, intimate, poetic moments and put them out on the street, and in a very beautiful way This is a piece by Daniel Boren from this ongoing series of striped of works with these 8.7 centimeter wide vertical stripes on them. The idea that somehow an artwork in its kind of dissonant relationship with the world can reveal the world a bit more clearly. One thing that happened during the recent weeks was the death of Christo, who was kind of, I guess, not an artist that I'd thought about very much, but when he died, I started thinking about how I'd seen some of these images as a kid and was really amazed by the sort of idea that an individual person could make something of such a kind of huge scale, and the sort of almost sort of superhuman power of that. And that leads me into this, which is literally, you know, something that appeared in the world a week ago, this incredible piece of text art in Washington after the as part of the George Floyd protests, and obviously we're rethinking public space in a very radical way now. Last weekend, this was the statue of Edward Colston, which was thrown into the harbour in Bristol, and we've seen already that this direct action is having consequences. The other thing at the moment is the need to not say anything for a while, the need to think and reflect, and I feel very much that I will need to reevaluate the way that I think about what I do and the way the kind of representations that I am putting into the public realm. So I think it's important that for a moment there's a pause. This is what I guess the project that Abe mentioned. So its first iteration was in Canada, in Toronto in 2012. It was the title of an exhibition I had at the Art Gallery of Ontario. And I guess this phrase, "please believe these paths," has sort of stuck with me. It was reimagined as a fly posting project around the time of the Brexit referendum. And at the beginning of lockdown, I noticed that people had started to post images of these works on social media. So I had a sense that it was resonating in a different way for the third time. This is the project that I made, I guess, that actually only came to an end last week. So it started sort of synchronous with lockdown. And this was a collaboration with Jack Arts, which is a kind of agency here in the UK, who gave me access to 10 sites, billboard sites and poster sites and digital screen sites in 10 cities around the UK. And you have to remember, at this time, we were all in the early days of lockdown. So I experienced most of this in an entirely vicarious way through social media and then through the newspapers, who found that basically for every day for weeks it was being tagged on to stories about coronavirus. And you know, if you could find a picture of someone walking past it in a face mask, it made great kind of editorial. And it was really interesting as a project to see it kind of to not experience it directly, but to experience it through the images that other people took, and also the positive kind of messages that I received from people around the UK as they came across the posters, initially not necessarily being able to know what they were. The other thing that I've really enjoyed is how people have dealt with kind of not being able to make gallery exhibitions, and creative ways of working with that. So this is an Instagram project called Slow Install, in which a series of artworks are gradually added or removed from a gallery. And this is a project by an artist called Bruce Asbestos, who's been mounting these kind of huge fictional exhibitions in fictional museums and galleries around the world, which are all, you know, based on kind of, I guess, the ridiculous, and I like it. So yeah, thank you very much.
We have to unmute Abe. There we go.
You or whatever. It gets too exciting listening. I think I can remember. Mark, you touched on something which I think is really powerful, and maybe it is the kind of the underpinning to everything which is happening, which is this moment of rethinking what we're all doing and what it's all about. I think there's so much change going on in the way we've been redefined that as you know, Alice was saying before, we can't continue the way we were. But I think we're all going through, well, certainly, you know, questioning the morals around our work, what we do, how we work, and how it can change. So I'm wondering, you know, you take already a very active role in subverting culture. How are you thinking your practice will evolve?
Well, I think initially, I mean, like I say, I do feel the need to kind of question my, you know, whether it's the right thing actually to be working in such a kind of public way at the moment, whether there's other things that should be happening in that space rather than the kind of work that I'm making. So it could be a time almost to kind of retreat backwards into kind of more intimate ways of working more with less visible outcomes. Like I think it's really important to sort of reimagine those spaces. And a strange thing, you know, that we've all experienced is when you're only going out once a week to do the shopping, you become much more aware of that space and much more aware of the kind of the rules that we all kind of obey in using those spaces. I mean, the worry is that we just slip back into a kind of, you know, seamless version of or of a worse version of what was there before. And I really hope that we can, you know, I mean, we need some strong political leadership, which we completely kind of lacked so far in the UK. And I think we need to see some of the will for change being enacted.
Yeah, I think the contemplation, the slowness, I think for me has maybe been the most interesting thing that's come out of this, you know, the notion of pause and of being slow and just staring out of your window and staring at the kind of world going by and thinking what we should be doing rather than just baking and making fresh pasta, which can occupy huge amounts of
yeah, I think there was the sort of initial point, you know, things like the art world at the beginning just tried to carry on as if nothing was happening by kind of moving to this kind of virtual model. And actually I was lucky enough to make this project, which was kind of the opposite. You know, it was out, people encountered it on that very important 20-minute, you know, stroll that they were getting round to go outside and, you know, to actually kind of engage with, you know, breathing the air and feeling the ground beneath your feet and not being filtered through kind of media. So
I'm just going to make a little brief comment that I think it was interesting that you're using these advertising spaces, because advertising has seemed to come redundant right now. I'm not interested in buying another chair or another something or other, and I find it just completely meaningless now. And I thought it was really interesting that you're occupying those spaces. So fantastic work, Mark. Thank you so much. I've got to move this thing along a little bit. It's all a bit of a family affair tonight. My son and daughter, Max and Mila, are watching, and I said I'd give them a shout out. Max is over my right-hand shoulder. I've got it my pointer right over there. You'll see him a little bit later. Anyway, hi guys, thanks for watching. I'm sorry I'm out late, but I'm in the office doing good. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ewan Ventnor. He is the CEO of Fortnum Masons, and he's a very good friend. We met a long time ago in Selfridges. Yeah, he's the CEO of the oldest, what would you call it, Ewan? Is it a department store or a shop in the world? 300-year history. That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of classically known as a department store. Emporium.
Okay.
of deliciousness.
Well, Astrid is sitting opposite me. She says hi. So
hi.
The 20 slides are yours, Ewan. Why don't you kick off?
Yeah, go for it. So this first image coming up is of me, taken by a photographer called David Loftus, who's a really good guy. You know, at the beginning of the year, this was taken in January, when I suppose I was thinking about lots of hope, you know, a new year, a new decade. Everybody was very excited about the change in attitudes of the environment. And then I opened a shop in Hong Kong just last November. And here's my team, who, of course, the first COVID reports was mid-January. And little did I know that the COVID-19 was heading into the UK in quite the way. But we learned lots about their energy and their passion and their ways of doing business. COVID-19 sort of hit down just as we were going into Easter. Here's an image that was run in Titchner magazine of our gorgeous entrance to our store. And again, you know, spring was in the air, lots of optimism still. We knew this pandemic was out there, but we didn't quite know how it was going to hit down. And London then really had to stand together. And I thought this was a great Sir Peter Blake image that was run across all of our newspapers and across social media, where, you know, London realized that the only way it was going to survive is by care and consideration for people in our communities. And, you know, that for me is a really important word, community. And Queen Victoria actually ordered from Fortnum Mason for Florence Nightingale this beef tea and was sent out to the Crimea. And, you know, she did something in a crisis, and we too did lots of things in the crisis, with donating food to the NHS, donating our Easter eggs to people who needed to be cheered up and key workers. We also worked with Angela Hartlett, the fabulous Michelin chef, on a project called Cook 19. And in 10 weeks, they cooked over 50,000 meals for key workers, and lots of other chefs across London got involved, and food companies donated lots of goodies to help bring about some extraordinary meals. Then we did an auction with Chris Evans, the breakfast show DJ on Virgin Radio. And can you imagine, Chris rang me up the night before this auction and said, would you donate a lunch in the boardroom? And Mark knows all about lunches in Fortnum's boardrooms. And guess what? At auction, it raised £100,000 to come and have lunch, which we'll be doing post-lockdown. And all of that money went to help the NHS. We too made our nod to our thanks and our love and support for the NHS, and turned the shop, the NHS blue colour, as a tribute to all of the key workers across the care sector, across the NHS. And I think this will be a really powerful image that will last long after COVID-19 leaves us. I was quite taken by this quote on the front cover of the FT: the pandemic is a porthole, we can walk through it with our dead ideas, or we can walk lightly, ready to imagine another world. And that's what we're having to do to survive in business, you know, imagining another world. And that new world is just, I think, beginning. Fortnum's has turned its whole business around, focused on digitalization. So we've been continuing through the pandemic, sending parcels to over 130 countries around the world, as we focus our energies on meeting the needs of our customers wherever they may be in the world. And that's important, not just for Fortnum's, but it's also important for our suppliers. I mean, here's a gorgeous image that was sent to me by one of my customers from Somerset. You know, 86% of everything we sell, we make in the United Kingdom from tiny producers all over every part of the UK. Here we've got some lovely beef coming from our farm in Northern Ireland in Glenarm. That's a really important part of keeping society together. One of our innovative suppliers, Conquer, they make gin. Well, they currently make hand sanitizer. He's doubled, trebled his business in such a short space of time, not only doing a great public duty, but also being innovative and keeping jobs alive. And he is back to making gin, so that's good news, but he's built a whole new enterprise. The London chefs got together, and restaurateurs and restaurant critics and me, and did a rhyme for London's restaurant. Go online, look it up. It's a really fun ditty to what life has felt like not having restaurants around, and you know, energy and inspiration for the future. We also raised money for the Felix Project. I was struck by this image. Who knew the oldest lady ever on the front cover of Vogue magazine, Dame Judy, who's also a great mate? And I spoke to Judy about the pandemic, and she said, you know, the thing that hurts me the most is the loss of time. Which is sad, really, but I think it's an opportunity. Then Her Majesty the Queen spoke to her subjects here in the UK, but I think spoke to the world, really. And I think that was one of the most sort of extraordinary broadcasts that so many people took, you know, really great heart from. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again. I think that's true leadership. I love this image. You know, the world is about love and compassion and caring for people and communities. And I really hope that one of the positive things that comes from this pandemic period is that we'll hold on to this spirit of friendship and kindness and neighborliness. It's a lovely, lovely picture. I think it was from Italy. And then we started to unlock on May the 21st. And this was an image in the Times that was taken of our red coat team outside the door. Quite an aggressive image there, but also an image of showing that strength and showing courage and showing that we can rebuild community, we can rebuild our business. And I was really taken by this appealing. And then within the shop, within the first day or two, people getting together. The man in the middle there is the chef, Richard Corrigan, and Sandra in the yellow dress is a great publican in the East End of London, and she made a special trip to try and greet people. Tracy Emin saw this image and she said to me, Ewan, you sell much more than food. It's about a place to meet and a place to convene. And I think that she's absolutely right. Fortnum's in 312 years has done this. A Banksy image, I'm sure we've all seen it, but wonderfully powerful that children are thinking of new superheroes. It's not Batman and Robin. It's not Spider-Man. It's the nurses, the care workers, the people on the front line who have kept us safe. And lastly, everything is going to be all right, said Martin Creed down at Housenworth and Somerset here. There's lots of irony in that statement, but I think he's right, and things will be all right in the end.
Thank you very much, Ewan. Really lovely presentation. I've been watching your Instagram posts all the way through this pandemic from afar, and I was always amazed that of all the good that you were doing, and always with a twist and something humorous, and it really lifted the spirit. And it's very interesting to see how all the chefs in London have got together. 50,000 meals. That's incredible.
Yeah, just in that
really,
one place.
Really well done.
And
go on.
Really important, on the agricultural side, because just because we're in a pandemic, food doesn't stop growing, and fish doesn't stop coming out of the sea, and so on and so forth. And communities, needed to stay alive. So I thought what a lot of the chefs did, and food businesses like Fortnum's, really helping to support the production of meals for people in the front line who were just simply too busy and too exhausted to be able to be fed well. I thought that was a really great London spirit.
Yeah, and I thought it was really important just to showcase what you guys do, and I'm sure lots of other firms are doing this. But that whole thing with food and people pouring milk away, and the animals keep growing. What are we going to do? We actually bought we actually buy boxes of vegetables from farmers around Japan. It comes to the office, and then we share it out with the team. I've got my onions here actually. So anyway, thank you so much, Ewan. It was a really great presentation, and I look forward to coming back to the store when I'm allowed out of Japan and allowed into the UK.
Into the UK, yeah.
So next, I just wanted to a quick hello to Brogan. Brogan runs PechaKucha Night in London, and she actually really helped us get this Inspire project going with her friend Kyle in Manchester. They really held the very first Inspire the World on the 9th of April. Since then, we've held over 30. I think we're about 24th event now. So hi, Brogan, how are you?
Hi, good. How's it going?
Very good, very good. It's been a really interesting session already. I just wanted to let you just say a few words about PechaKucha London, when your next event is, and maybe what you get up to in town, and the influence that the pandemic's had on you and on your work.
Hi, Kyle. Yeah, so I've been running PechaKucha London for about 4 years now. We have an event coming up on July 2nd. We'll be talking about movement. And I guess I should also plug Kyle's event because he isn't here, but on July 9th, they're doing one on migration, which they'll both be really good events. Hopefully you guys
that's up in Manchester, yeah?
Yeah, well, online. Manchester.
Online up in Manchester.
Yeah, online for the foreseeable future. Yeah, I don't know. The lockdown has been really interesting. It's cool having Mark on the call because I have walked by so many of those posters that say, please believe these days will pass. And definitely in the beginning, it helped to just see something positive around London. So thanks for that. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say, Mark.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for dropping in. And what's been interesting in this era of social distancing, this has sort of brought us all closer together. And what's been interesting with the PechaKucha community around the world is that we can drop in and say hi to cities we've never spoken to. I mean, we've been running for internationally now about 14 years, and some of the cities have had over 100 events, and I've never met the organizers. And this way, again, I could drop in and meet Kyle up in Manchester, and we're now swapping presenters and doing really amazing things with the community. So this has brought, although we're social distance, it's brought the community much closer together. Okay, thanks, Brogan. Stay on the call if you can. And it's over to Abe to introduce Blue.
Well, Blue, as her name would imply, is a person full of energy and creativity. Sorry, we've got feedback, so we're in the same room. An extraordinary fashion designer, turned artist, turned illustrator, who has been making beautiful work during this peculiar period from found objects and other materials. What's best is to let her to tell the story, and we can discuss more afterwards. So thank you, Blue.
Thank you. Hello. I think we're going to get feedback. I just say hello. This is actually a picture of me that I was taken because it was kind of during lockdown, and I just thought, this is kind of like where my head is at. It's a bit all over the place. I'm scared, but I'm kind of creating. There's a picture of me doing a really bad haircut on my son on the left-hand corner, which he was filming during a online school session. A little bit for where I was at, I do lots of fashion illustrations, and I use a lot of tape in my work, found tape, packing tape. And actually what I started doing was fashion illustrations, and then Matthew Burroughs' studio ended up coming up with the artist support pledge, which I ended up selling some of my work over Instagram. Here are some found objects that I was using around the house. I think I was going a little bit mad, but I just kind of wanted to keep reusing things that people had thrown out of their house, and just to kind of create something quite lo-fi. I got a little bit worried that flowers became non-essential, and these were my last tulips from Tesco's, and they were drying up, and I just thought, as the kind of weeks went past, how beautiful they looked, and almost became an art piece in themselves, and how they looked like they were dancing. And I just kind of wanted to do more flowers in my work. I think it was a sense of being inside and not seeing much thing. You're creating your own bubble in your house, and with people, with everybody in the house, and I just kind of wanted this beauty, and I tried out different techniques with how I use the tape, and how I wanted to use, I do a lot of life drawing, and how I wanted to combine them together to kind of make these beautiful images, as opposed to, I wanted to stay away from my collages of quite surreal things. But yeah, I think it was a sense of beauty I wanted. And then I was called up by Philippe Baptista, who's the creative director of Kenzo, and asked if I would do an isolation session for Kenzo. And I thought, God, how horrific, like having to do live things. But actually I decided to come out of my comfort zone. And like everything now, I was trying out new live, which becomes a little bit normal now, live talking sessions. Here's some of my tape collages I did for him, just to promote the sessions that were going on. And I really thought, for the fashion industry, to be able to take artists and designers and different people to show that what they can do in a very lo-fi way, that you didn't have to have all these masses of people to come around, like stylists and art directors and stuff, that you were there in your home with your phone, streaming to, I don't know, a few hundred people. And I thought, God, you know, even that in itself, scaling things back in the fashion industry, is actually, you can do stuff yourself. My life drawing became digital, and I love going to my life drawing classes every Tuesday, and there's how that made me feel about having to do things in front of a TV, like kind of we all are now, and even just like not having enough paper. I was a bit scared to go outside, to be honest with you, at the beginning, and I just was taping all my A4 photocopy paper together, and actually I thought there was something quite nice in it, and drawing over notes that I'd made, and it's actually something that I wanted to do as a project anyway. But even the guy on the right, I was painting, and it was just over, my mum's been in hospital, and it's just painting over the notes that have been that was on her about her hospital ward and stuff like that. I got a sense of panic that maybe the whole fashion industry was caving in on itself and had forgotten me. I kind of lost my sense of way a little bit, and so I started to update my CV, and I thought, my God, I've got to get my CV updated. What have I been doing with myself? And I actually painted my paintings on a CV, and I thought, well, maybe more people would want that anyway. Going out for a walk, I was finding out pieces of cardboard out on the street, and I actually thought, you know, not a new idea, but something kind of old, and, you know, to paint over something maybe beautiful on it, and to make my work more kind of lo-fi, but trying to make kind of sense of it all, really. This is just more experiments that I was doing. And actually selling things on Instagram became a new thing for me with this artist support pledge. I thought, I wanted to sell my work. This is a good way. And actually I ended up giving a lot of my percentage of sales to the Intensive Care Society to help with that. Yeah, and this just gave me a new direction in my work, really. And everything that's going on in the world, I kind of felt like I wanted to mix my medias together. That was like bottle top cardboard. And it just gave me an idea of kind of, also with the cardboard, maybe that it was disposable and it wasn't so precious as using linen like a stretched canvas, that I could try and experiment and keep going. And actually the fact that people started to buy my work on cardboard made me really feel that it was a good step for me to do that. And I wanted also, because I'm a fashion designer, I wanted to bring more textiles now into my work. So this is a new stuff that I'm working on, and it's working on fabrics and colors, and I think it's this fact that some of my consultancies stopped, and I just felt that I wanted to kind of bring a beauty to my work now. It's become less kind of graphic, but more the sense of kind of things coming together, my world's coming a little bit together. And this is a sort of a bit of a new direction that I wanted. Just before the lockdown, I was in the St. Martin's College of Art doing some ideas in the library, and I saw this as a prospectus, and I thought, yeah, you know what? And I found this again recently. I thought, it's true, the world does need creativity. We do need to kind of solve a lot of problems with our creative minds. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. That's quite hard work, isn't it, doing that so quickly?
You go into the PechaKucha bubble and pop out the other end. No, it's fantastic. What really lovely images, really bright. My son is going to love that. He's a budding artist.
Thank you.
And that was really, really lovely and powerful. And the fact that you're painting on cardboard too was really lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, blue, extraordinary work, and also so interesting to see what you're really doing with the sense of anxiety that goes on.
It's true, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was true. It's been a very different, I feel all emotions. I've been happy, I've been sad, I've been scared, I've been worried, I've not seen my mum. It's all just been in this bubble, and you just feel kind of, I still feel quite isolated. I mean, it's great coming to your studio today. I've kind of come out on the bicycle and social distance, but I feel it in my bones, you know. I feel like, where is this all going in the design world as well, you know? I think where we have to come up with some kind of solution to help a lot of these problems that are created, and I don't quite know where it is. Yeah.
That was my next question. My next question: the fashion industry must be in quite a state. It must be quite confused. It's used to so much glam and celebrity and personal connectivity, and suddenly to be limited to a little screen.
Yeah, and also, you know, you need to be sincere, and I think that's what I'm struggling with at the moment, is seeing these brands, especially with all the topics at the moment and things, about how you bring that sincerity to it. And I think a lot of brands are struggling, and I think a lot of brands are doing well. But yeah, and in the end, I mean, throughout this whole time, I thought, I've not really wanted to buy anything. I don't know if anybody has, but I think we all have to kind of take time to reflect and look in the industry and see.
Yeah, we were just saying that. We were saying that at lunch, that we're just not buying any. I've got no desire to go out and buy any clothes or you know, everybody's, well, not that you can, but I think that's going to be a big issue for the fashion industry, that the consumption has stopped, and it's made you think that you don't probably need clothes for 3 months. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the you know, I mean, I don't know huge amounts about it at the moment, but I know that things are going to be going much more digital. But you know, there are companies still carrying on, and but it's the shows, it's the expense, you know, everything about that. All the industry creates a huge, you know, the creative industry is kind of 1 in 5 of the people.
I mean, it's amazing who it affects. We have some friends that have a rental business, a rental furniture business for shows and things like this, and suddenly there's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and even in Japan, the business card, the guys that make the business cards, the meishi, well, no one's going and giving business cards, and no one's traveling. So our printer is having a really tough time, you know. So it's amazing how it impacts people.
I don't know, in East London, certainly the luxury's moved away from fashion, and it's all about queuing up to go to the butcher and buy the most spectacular piece of pork that has been...
Ewan, you can help there. Just go to Fortnum.
They're queuing up for the butchery at Fortnum's at the moment.
Exactly. Okay, thank you so much, Blue. That was fantastic. And now it's over to... It's got Tokyo down there, but I think you're in Thailand, Pete. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes. Hi, everyone.
So next up is the brilliant Pete, who is the inventor of Wonder Fruits, the extraordinary sustainable festival platform, and with a commitment to true hedonism with the most sustainable way. Pete, I should hand it over to you to tell us about your journey and these last strange months.
Okay, hi everyone. Abe, I love your beard. Okay, so is the slide supposed to? Okay, yeah. So in 2014, I started a festival called Wonder Fruit. I was working on an environmental campaign my dad did like 30 years ago. So I wanted to create a dialogue with people on environmental issues, but doing it through art, music, food, wellness, talks. So these are some structures we did. This is what we did with Abe's studio. On the left, you have like a reinterpretation of a fishing village, and then the umbrellas, which shows handicraft. We sculpted or interpret how people can view performances called the Living Village, where it's like a bunch of like terraces and bricks. We built a stage out of rice. We grew this rice on the site. We cultivated it. This is based on an old farming tradition in Thailand, when they used to call for the rain and thank for the rain, but no longer exists because of industrial farming. So we built a 35-meter stage out of that. And after that, we used the rice. This is the design competition we did, where we had over 100 applications from all over the world. Super green, super clean, super lean, we called it. This is the winner, called Trojan Collectives. We did that with a collaboration with Abe Studio, and we housed our ethos exhibition in it. We tried to engineer empathy. We shut down the event like in 2016, meaning shut down all the electricity, all the lights. And we had 5,000 people lie together in a grid formation, and these very funny characters came out, and we shut everything off to try to engineer empathy. People hated it. But these are some of the art projects we've worked with, from sculpting from the ground. We did a project based on cryptocurrency, alternative currency, showing there's an alternative way to think about the capitalist society we live in. Everything's recycled, upcycled, or built with renewable materials or from the earth itself. We learned a lot through food. We had a farm on site. We have a structure that is called Camp Edible, where it's all about fermentation. It's a permanent structure on site. We ferment stuff, we dig it in the ground, and then during the site, we hold these workshops. So that pivots into what I'm gonna talk about, what I did during COVID. So we learned a lot about food. This is another feasting hall we did. Again, we worked a lot with chefs and farmers, and this is a circular dining hall we did with Abe, where you have to cross bridges to come to it. Again, all made of natural materials, recycled offshoots from Jim Thompson's silk. And so yeah, when COVID came, we were working on a food festival, a physical one, and then under the brand Fruitful. So a similar ethos to Wonder Food, how can we create more dialogues between the food we eat, the people that grow them, and you know, turning something very normal into something that you can think more about. And we pivoted very quickly when COVID hit to do an interactive series of online dining. We called it Fruitful Lockdown. Wow, this is tough, 20 seconds, okay. Let's see, next. So yeah, this is Munch, this is a character, it's like our maitre d'. So every Fruitful Lockdown is an interactive dining. This is our maitre d', he comes from the ground just to resemble you know, a seed being grown, and he acts as the host of these Fruitful Lockdowns we are doing. We are doing 5 in total. And this is how it works. So you reserve your seat online, you order it all online, your meal is delivered, it's all synchronized. So meaning the dinner starts at 7 p.m. It's all delivered through you through motorbikes, the live stream starts, and it's interactive. So the food gets delivered. The live stream is a series of different content that some of it's pre-recorded, some of it's not. The proceeds go to COVID relief. This is them giving food away in the canals of Bangkok. Altogether, they donated over 1 million different packs to like, there's like alcohol gel, there's sanitation, and there's food for the underserved and marginalized communities in Thailand. So this is Fruitful. The first series, the first dinner we did called Re-Eating Thai Food. This was about how this particular restaurant supports community agriculture despite COVID. So it was a very serious type of dinner, serious type of content based on how farmers are reacting and restaurants are reacting. The second one was more based on how can you travel without traveling. So we did a couch party with Ga, collaboration with chefs in London and Denmark. We had Nick Luscombe and Soup and Django do the music for it. And this is more for a party. The concept was based on traveling. How do everyone's missing going to traveling, but the next one was based on ancient cookbooks. So the similarities between Thai and Korean cookbooks. Actually, there's very close similarities between Thai food and Korean food with Chef Prin and Chef Chu Hee Sok, which was rated #1, Asia's #1 chef. So this was a interactive stream with food delivered based on ancient cookbooks. They swap cookbooks. Then we did one with La Cime, and we had the culinary director of Shake Shack, Mark Rosati. Osaka is a very innovative, very international city, so we wanted to show, demonstrate, the complexity of the food there. Its complexities and the international flavors of Osaka. And actually, I'm sitting at the Fruitful finale. I'm at the restaurant now at Ga, and it's a finale which we did 9. We're doing a collaboration with 9 chefs from all over the world, and this wraps up the finale part of Fruitful. All the packaging, of course, there's a huge problem with delivery with all this plastic styrofoam packaging. So our packaging is designed naturally compostable or reusable. These are examples of the packaging. Every series had a different format of packaging that we did and sent out to everyone. This is an example of what you see in the stream from the chef's part, them interacting with, so every stream had like a chef interacting, doing like a cook along. So these are examples of what you see on your screen of like chefs demonstrating a dish. And this is just the diners enjoying the meal. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. We learned how to create a virtual space through Zoom and through a tactile delivery. So it was kind of like a hybrid model where we sent stuff over, but you live stream it. But the trick, I think, is how do you create a space? How do you hold space using Zoom? And I think we managed to do that in a fun and interactive way. Thank you.
Great job. Abe, I think you're muted.
Oh, always unmuted. For me, it's really fantastic because you really mix the physical and the digital at the same time. And this idea of kind of watching the food being eaten, the music coming through, and then arriving on your table. I'm really not aware of anyone doing this at the moment in London, certainly not in such a level. And then I take it that all the Tiffan dishes go back to the chef. So there's no boxes and plastic and loads of rubbish wasted.
Yeah. There's we had a sustainability manual that we used from Wonderfruit, so we adopted that. So it's zero waste, all sustainable packaging. Yeah.
No, it's great. There's lots of lessons to be learned there. Yeah, that's what's so great about these events. We find out all this interesting information and what you're doing there in Thailand. It was really brilliant. Made me feel quite hungry, actually.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That's really great. Is everybody having a good time? The presentation standard is incredible. It's really amazing. And I hope you're all getting the hang of PechaKucha, the 20 slides, 20 seconds. We've had about 200 people over on the Zoom. We've had about 50 up to 100 people over on YouTube. And as Brian said at the beginning, this is not the end of the presentations. These presentations stay there and people can drop in. You'll be able to see the Zoom. You'll be able to see the YouTube video of this whole presentation as soon as we finish. And we'll be putting up the presentations over on the main PechaKucha site, which is linked in all of the bios and things on the internet. So each individual presentation will be packaged in a couple of days so you can share them far and wide. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Sam Jacob from Sam Jacob Studio. In Tokyo. Yeah, sorry, that's got the last minute. They didn't quite get. We're hoping you're going to open an office here too. That's my fault. I'm sorry. We were racing through this just beforehand. So yeah, Sam's. We read his blogs and his different things, and we're always interested to what he gets up to. So I'm really interested to hear his presentation and what he's been doing during the pandemic. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for starting the rumor that I've got a Japanese office. It's always nice to get these ideas out there.
It's quite good, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is where I've been. This is where I've been living. It's like me and my 16-year-old daughter Maddie, and we live above the studio. And so this really has been the kind of world we've been in for the last, whatever, like 3 months, I think, something like that. I mean, it's so hard to remember. And one of the strange things, I suppose, is thinking about like what's happened. A few other people have talked about it, but the sort of changes in scale, what it means to be at home so much. So I started making these things. They're called World of Interiors, obviously. And I guess they're worlds of interiors. They're plans chopped up and kind of collaged onto these globes. And of course, there's not one world of interiors, there's many, as we realize that there are so many kind of versions of the world that we kind of inhabit simultaneously. So these are maybe the kind of geography of where we've been in this strange kind of global lockdown, a description of a kind of world. And in the kind of reverse way, this was a design for a house. It's a design for a house, which is the whole world. And it's based on the thing on the right-hand side of the screen, which is the oldest known map of the world, the Babylonian tablet, which is this circle with a number of cities in it, kind of landscape features. And that when our house has become the whole world, it's a very strange sensation. All kinds of things change. This is some other activity I've been painting onto eBay purchased paintings, kind of black squares and circles and triangles. I don't know what they are. Maybe the voids in our life. But this is what I wanted to show you, really. It's an idea which had been around. I could have dug it up. It was from the late 90s. And it originally was an idea about the liberation of the internet, Desktop Design Academy, a way in which we could all participate in thinking about design. But of course, the internet didn't turn out to be quite what we thought it was going to be then. But it's worked really well. Now we've done 8 weeks of Desktop Design Academy. Every week there's a different theme. There's a little brief and there's a sort of issue to think about. And then we have a review on a Friday afternoon. And anyone's welcome to participate. People who are designers, but also non-designers, kids, whatever. And really, it's not so much about kind of creating great bits of design. It's about using design to think about our situation, perhaps now, but also like these fundamental issues. So I'm going to show a few of them to you. So this was the first one we did, which was design a souvenir. And it felt like a kind of, weird thing, especially at that moment where we felt like we literally, or at least I felt we couldn't leave the house. like what purpose might a souvenir have when you can't go anywhere? And there was like some amazing contributions. This was someone, Michelle, who remade a souvenir of Mont Saint Michel in this kind of gloopy, like snow dome exterior. So you couldn't quite see what was inside. It was almost like a kind of, memory you couldn't quite access. Then we looked at the bed. So sometimes it's sort of abstract, sometimes it's very practical. What happens to the bed when the bed is where we do everything, not just where we go at the end of the day, but where we work, socialize. What role might it be? And what might that mean for design? The same thing with time. So this was a response really to the weird quality of time. I know a lot of people have said it's gone faster. We've had more of it. I don't know. It's gone faster and slower. We've had more of it, but less of it. I've never felt kind of more like pressured, but also unable to do anything at the same time. So yeah, this was one of the questions about the bed. What happens to the normal rules of domesticity? Those rules which have been devised through, society and economics and so on, when the kind of context is completely different. And people have made amazing work. This is a guy called Rawsthorn who literally made a daybed out of like scraps of stuff he found on the street. So it's a sort of like a kind of like instant Mies van der Rohe, essentially. Like really incredible responses, imagination from people I've never met. I don't know who they are really. Another one, this was about rethinking clothes. One, bits of packaging comes out of Amazon, but also thinking about like protective surfaces, so bubble wrap t-shirt, but also this transformation of the toilet tissue, the valuable toilet roll into an object of luxury. This is by the same one who made the same person who made the shoe, Carolyn Chow. This is another one where the bed expands. The bed expands, the sheets take over the whole of the house, so you can't quite tell where the bed stops and the dining room table starts, which I'm sure is a very familiar feeling to many of us. Thinking about things like door, when threshold becomes so important, what's in and out. We know if you had a Domino's delivery, the kind of weird dance you do to kind of get that, to pick up the pizza. So this was someone who just added doors into Mies van der Rohe's free-flowing brick house plan. This was rethinking the museum. What do we do with museums when we can't visit them? What do museums do? And someone here, V. Wilson, who made an amazing idea, a little box to go on the front of our house, which is a miniature street museum. In the UK, we have a lot of kids who are making drawings of rainbows and putting them on the windows and doors. And what if that became a kind of moment of interaction, useful another way? This was about maps. What do we use maps for if we can't go anywhere? And this was a map produced by one-to-one rubbings by an architect in Dubai. We've had guest critics, we've had participation from people all over the world, and it's been really fantastic. But it has been a strange time. These design exercises are not about solving problems in any sense, but they may be about thinking about how design can help us understand the world in the immediate sense, but also maybe think about how the world has ended up like it is and how it could become different. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Sam. That was amazing. I really like those. Astrid said she really liked the globes, because what do you need a globe for when you can't go anywhere? And you just paper mache over it. There's so much to unpack there. We don't have that much time. But
sure.
So this started because of the lockdown. It was an idea you'd had, and this seemed the perfect time to do it. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, when we're stuck in one place, actually, in some ways, there's a sort of strange intimacy that we can create, just like you're doing, like with this event.
Exactly. And so how do people join? How did they hear about it? How do they join? I really like that comment that you'd never met any of these people.
It's just through Instagram, like hashtags on Instagram, instant galleries, very loose, like as loose as possible, as little bureaucracy as possible, as informal as possible, as far away from the kind of rules and regulations of a traditional form of education. as we could make it, really.
Yeah, no, amazing. That's a really great idea. And I know that Jude is going to be talking about something similar but completely different in a few minutes. So thanks, Sam. That was an awesome presentation. Okay,
Thanks, Sam.
Next up is we are correct now. I could have put London on there and pretended that Tachikawa has got an office in London, but he's over in Tokyo. Tachikawa runs a practice here called Nozaina, and he's spoken before, right at the beginning, our second Inspire the World session 2 months ago, and he just started this project called Pandade about, well, I'll let him explain. So Tachikawa-san, over to you. The 20 slides are yours. Let's have a chat a little bit afterwards.
Okay, I'm ready. Hey guys. Hi, this is my name is Eisuke Tachikawa. As Mark have said, that I'm participating from Japan. Thank you for having me here, Mark, today. I'm kind of course, I'm designer, so I'm running design firm called Nozaina. Today, I will just keep my daily work, but yeah, hopefully that I'll make something good as possible for the future and society. You may remember this ship is Diamond Princess. It's actually stayed in front of my house, and actually this image is from my house. And yeah, quite until recently, the Yokohama is also suffered from this coronavirus pandemic, and yeah, it's quite difficult situation around the world right now. Yeah, of course that it's invisible, and also you cannot smell it, and it's hard to recognize. But yeah, as of today, currently that we are suffering from COVID-19, and already about 420,000 people have gone around the world. It's quite too sad to say, but some of you may even be grieving the loss of friends or loved ones. So I cannot help for starting some project for this pandemic, and we started the project is called Pandade, which is the activity for trying to make the easiest website to understand what is COVID-19, and with co-editing process of many of voluntary people. And now currently that about 300 brands for making for editing this whole website, and currently that we have 6 languages, including Japanese and English, and yeah, please have a look at it. Yeah, this site is basically that growing in every day with slight pieces. Like you could know like what is the COVID-19, or what kind of behavior will help you. For example, this is the manual for disinfection, and you can easily make a disinfectant for daily use by household bleach. Sorry that it's only in Japanese. This is the manual for disinfection. No, sorry. This is checklist for Simpsons. And yeah, you would know that yeah, if you think that you may have COVID-19, that you can check what kind of behavior, what kind of symptoms are usual for that symptoms. You may already know that the virus can live about 3 days for example, daily surfaces like stainless steel or plastic. So such kind of science communication we are trying to spread from this activity.
Hi, Brian. I think we've lost a bit of sound there. Is that just me?
I'm not sure what's happened. Let's pause this one. Oh, Tachikawa-san, I'm so sorry. I have no idea what's happened. Tachikawa-san, we've lost your voice. We haven't muted you or anything.
I want to see more tuners. He was really on getting into the tuner measuring.
A brilliant presentation. I feel terrible that we've lost his audio somehow. I didn't touch anything. Tachikawa-san, are you still there?
Oops. Sorry.
Tachikawa-san, shall we go back a few slides?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Maybe you press the space bar. Yeah. Where should I start? Maybe here?
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Okay, off you go.
Thank you for your help.
Yes, please go.
Thank you. You know that, it's almost the same length as your Beatles from your country. And this is actually made the most strong bars. Only with 30 seconds that you can turn usual clear file to the face field, and now it's used in many of the medical many of hospitals, or even that, for example, the piano school, or many of the places in Japan. Now we are trying to spread in these kind of useful informations to abroad also. So we are trying to spread these mainly currently that mainly is only in Japanese and English, but we are trying to spread to the other languages. By the way, that let's check out the current status of the coronavirus as of today. Left is Japan and right is United Kingdom. As you may see that kind of miraculously that the Japan is getting overcome, but and also that in new country, but it's quite. I can say that it's still too early to relieve, because the world in the world in total, the daily new cases keep increasing in daily. So right now it's in Russia and Myerscough. It's quite getting higher for infection. So still that we need to have social distancing. So we started a new project for making the new sticker, which makes a sound like this. Can you hear? If you step on that, you will you will have the sound. Actually, this kind of the activity for the science communication for public health is quite in the origin of design itself. This is the image from Ottonora, who created a kind of prototype or pictogram. This is quite exactly look like a kind of information for coronavirus, but this is for the tuberculosis about 100 years ago. So I believe that designer can do many things for getting overcome this situation. Actually, more to say that the design starts from overcome the hardship for such kind of infection. So yeah, I believe that the listener for today and the participants for today are quite creative people. So let's fight together for this hard situation. And we are quite looking forward for collaboration in any time. Thank you very much for today.
Tachikawa-san, thank you very much. So yeah, so Astrid in the office, she's made her little, when we go on construction sites, she has a little thing, sort of ribbon around it, one on the front, one on the back, which tells people to keep 2 meters away from her. Yeah. So, but your idea of just taking an A4 slip folder like this, you basically photocopy. I should have got one. You photocopy his thing. You slip it in, and you make the 2 cuts, and it turns immediately into a PPE face mask, which Tachikawa-san's just put on now. I think his video has been viewed 5 million times on YouTube, and it's really ingenious that from a piece of office stationery you can make a face mask. As you say, it's being used all around the world now. So congratulations on that. And the website, you're saying it's in 8 languages now?
6 languages currently.
Six languages, and you've got
Trying
a bunch
to
of
spread
volunteers.
the
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really amazing. And Tachikawa-san also did a book after the earthquake and tsunami issues we had here, how to get prepared. And that you had a print run of 8 million of those, yeah.
Right.
So,
it's literally distributed for the whole household in Tokyo City.
yeah,
citizen.
amazing. So you did a really great job in these situations. So thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your work today. Fantastic. So please check him out at pand-a.com. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So over to you, Abe, for the next presenter.
It's my great pleasure to be introducing B, the fashion designer from Mexico, who's passionate about black and about techno, and it's the coming together of those two elements that her work is all about. Her passion for black is so much that she made everyone at her wedding wear black except herself, who of course is in the superior red. But enough said, and should hand over to you to tell us your tales of fashion in Mexico City.
Hello, everyone. I feel very honored to be part of this. I'm very happy and I'm very nervous. And well, I'm Bibiana Colmanares. I was born and raised in Mexico City. I'm a fashion designer and I teach design. And the first thing you should know about me is that I'm very passionate about how garments are made and that I love black. Black is elegance, black is easy, black is bold, black is rebel. During my years as a student, I was often criticized because I was doing everything only in black garments, black prototypes, using black and white photos to communicate my work. So my final collection at school was a tiny revenge to all my teachers. So I used a very, very shiny yellow. But of course, black is always back. With my experimental collection, with this one that is called Visible, I try to mix other colors with a little bit of black. And this was based in the idea of being naked or dressed all at once. It was by deconstructing a suit, and I used materials such as wool, latex, and tulle, which will become a very important material for me later. But my main project is my brand. Heart of Darkness is a label created in Mexico by me and my husband, Lorenzo Alvarez, an architect. We want to set timeless lines, and of course, black is our only color, full of nonsense that always hesitates on what to reveal or what to hide. We build clothes. Each of our creations follow its own rules, theme, and processes. We think clothes is not just a seasonal creation, but just a piece that you want to keep forever and wear every day. And Heart of Darkness is inspired by techno, punk, ninjas. And well, this is an installation that we designed for the presentation of the edition 2. I have always think that we don't need to have catwalks all the time. And during these times, fashion weeks have been canceled. So we need to think about how to present our work in these strange moments. Well, we have been in quarantine for almost 12 weeks, and I'm very lucky to be between my house and the studio. And when the viewers arrive to Mexico, I need to stop all my production. So I'm here by myself, thinking and rethinking and reflecting in what should I do to contribute to this new normal. It has been very difficult times for me, especially in my creative part, in my creative practice, because there are so many concerns in the world. But music has always saved me. Music always transports me to other worlds and state of minds. And this is my favorite song of this moment, Whispers by Visage. I hope you can listen to it. On the way to my studio, there is a market, and outside of the market, there's a community of homeless women, men, and even children. And I realized that they didn't have any face mask. So I produced like 150 pieces with a cotton fabric that I have from a leftover of a production. And I gave these to people who work and live in the streets. For the first time in many days, that made me feel connected and realize how collaboration is a very important part of my work. And this textile is a piece I developed as a collaboration with the architect Frida Escobedo, and both physically and metaphorically speaks about weaving and connecting with people. Having friends or colleagues at my studio, thinking in new things, in new projects, having conversations is one of the activities I miss the most. Last week by myself, I was playing with the pleated tulle curtain at my studio, creating textile sculptures and thinking of future proper developments and collaborations. As a creator, having ups and downs, being afraid, feeling creative or not, being sad or happy is normal. This pause is, I think we should appreciate it. And this is a visual diary I have been making these days to express how I feel. And well, working through this stage moment, I have been deeply engaged in looking into the beauty that surrounds me, my culture, my roots, and my background. These two women are from Oaxaca, where my family is from. And I have been researching the textiles and fashion from 50 years ago to see how it evolved to the globalized world. I truly believe quarantine is very important for developing, growing, rethinking, reflecting, creating, and I value the opportunity to slow down because I can make better decisions or see things from other perspectives, and most important, just observe and be conscious. One of my most pressing thoughts right now is how important our hands are. Before COVID arrived, the value of my hands was different from today. Today, I feel that I can make everything with them, like from making a table, harvesting in my yard, making a cake, or even building a house. And something that COVID has changed is the way we teach and how we learn. I was very scared of teaching my class through a computer screen, but I was very surprised how adaptable my students and me were. And they seem happier, they seem more independent, and they seem more in control with their projects. Maybe we need to have classrooms physically and virtually. And while talking about consumption, I think that this theme about consumption before COVID was in the air and everything, but I think we need to be very radicals. And for me as a designer, I think that we all should express our values through our clothing. Well, in the future, when we're able to travel again, I hope that it's going to be soon, I want to keep studying, learning, and practicing, and specifically, I want to learn a lot about waist loom and how to move my dance to create special textiles. So much has happened in these 3 months that should lead us to transform into a better society, better humans, with more tolerance, with more respect, and to understand each other's needs to transform society into a better place on the world, of course. And for me as a designer, means thinking through the value of working with our own hands. And I hope that this will that this will be over soon and we can hug again, that we can feel less vulnerable, that we will stop covering our faces. But the first thing I will do is to celebrate with all my family and friends that this is over, and I'm going to dance all night long. Thank you.
Bravo.
Abe, you need to unmute.
Yeah. I'm unmuted. There's a beautiful picture you painted, the all-night dancing at the end of the evening. And I think this notion of rediscovering your hands and your role as a designer is I think what so many of us are going through. And I'm intrigued to see the techno dancing with the waist loop, how that
yes,
works.
it's like a choreography. It's like like dancing. It's like that.
So what are you doing with your hands now?
Well, right now I'm very nervous and they are sweating. But I have been cooking. I have been cooking a lot. I'm surprised about that. Now I'm a chef. And yeah, Mexico is, right now it's very complicated because a lot of people is getting infected right now because they are like very relaxed, and that's getting very horrible, and I'm very worried about it. And other thing that I have in my mind every day when I'm in my bag going to my studio is that almost all the people that I saw in the streets, they wear the face mask in a very wrong way, you know, with the nose outside, like, you know, like it's
making a cigarette at the corner.
Yeah, like just move like this. It's very funny how people is not wearing the face mask in a, you know, right? So maybe as a designers, we need to start to make graphics of how to use them, because people are like thinking in other things, no? And it's very funny that here in Mexico, a lot of people think that coronavirus doesn't exist, that is something like the world invented and it's just an imaginary thing, no? So it's very funny.
Them and Trump alike. The problem is Trump running a massive country.
Yeah.
I must say you've got a really good, you've got a very clear internet connection there in Mexico. I can hear you clearer than everybody in London.
Perfect.
Maybe we're a bit, no, don't know. Anyway, thank you so much. That was a really lovely presentation.
Thank you so
So
much.
moving
up too early.
Yeah, what time is it in Mexico right now?
8:53.
Oh, you were up early, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Don't worry. Thank you.
Okay, moving along. We've got 3 presentations left. We're nearly there. So Jude, I met on another one of these Inspire the World presentations from Benton Harbor and St. Joseph in America. And he had a fascinating story. Jude's a technologist, a physical prototyping expert. He's worked at Dyson and at Lego. And he's on the BBC Two's Big Life Fix documentary. He's one of the 8 folks on that program. So without further ado, let me welcome Jude to the stage, and over to you. The 20 slides are yours.
Hello there. Thanks so much for having me back again. It's a pleasure.
It's crazy, huh?
It's unbelievable. It's yeah, and it's strange even how much has changed in just this short gap of a few weeks. So yeah, I know it's familiar to you, Mark, but I hope it's interesting to people watching for the first time.
Okay, Brian.
So when you're ready. All right. It seems to be on. So I ended up creating a series of lockdown lectures, which I think it's reasonably self-explanatory, but to be specific, this was lectures for undergraduate students at university who basically, because of COVID, weren't able to access the usual quality of their teaching. And so it wasn't my first interaction with Bangor University. I actually went to this beautiful place out in the middle of the country, and we had this regular design conference for the past 3 years from everyone from Unilever to Seymour Powell, DCA Design. So just really quite remarkable that out in the sticks, there was something of this caliber. So I, always rooting for an underdog. And actually, this isn't Wales, this is Cumbria, where I grew up. And I know it seems crazy probably to this audience, but actually, when I was a kid, I didn't actually know you could be a designer, or indeed, let alone how to be a designer. So I've always had this chip on my shoulder of how long it took me to get a career in it. I wanted to sort of give back and enthuse people in rural communities that it is possible. So I think I've always grown up, as I said, sort of being in the country, being quite resourceful. And I'm actually now sitting, aside from the virtual backdrop, in a 2-meter cube, basically where I managed to achieve, I think, quite a lot with very little other than a laptop and quite a lot of tools. But it's that resourcefulness that I remember when I created the online lecture series, people said, oh, what software are you using? It looks quite sophisticated. And I sort of sheepishly admitted that this is a PDF document, which I scroll through, my photo booth, just the default camera, and then a text editor for my notes, remembering what I need to say. And this has always been going on in my life, in that I created, when I was at Dyson, a series of prototyping tutorials showing people how to make stuff out of card. But next to that orange arrow, you can see my tripod hanging from the ceiling with a camera on it and my wife's compact makeup mirror elastic banded so that I could see what my hands were doing whilst I was doing these tutorials. Anyway, back to the actual thing in hand, the lockdown lectures were basically chunked into the blue bit, which is lots of sort of prototyping and practical skills, the yellow bit, which was sort of lots of holistic, how do you get a career? And then because of the COVID situation, the red bit was really about how do you maintain morale and passion? in tough circumstances. And even though I could have gone on about all the great stuff I've done at Lego and Dyson and Subaru, I brought it back to what did I do for my final year project with the NHS? And this is the sort of rough and ready slapdash prototyping methods that I used to create something which would help avoid your trachea being ruptured in an operation. So it's actually when you put that sort of honest perspective, warts and all, we had a Q&A here live on Zoom with about 60 students, with Peridor, the tutor and the host for this, and you can see all the questions streaming in, and it's just incredible to get that feedback rather than just pushing out a lecture and saying it's done. To get that critique back. And so one of the things I sort of wanted to sort of pick from the lectures was this thing about T-shaped people, which some of you have heard of, which was basically saying lots of broad experiences with a few areas of depth. And I thought this was actually quite a sort of fitting metaphor for where we were going, ironically. And this is a Zoom layout of all sorts of different people with their various individual T's. And if you imagine a skill is blue, then some people have a little bit, some people have a medium bit, and some people have a lot. And how you can create connections, not just between departments, but also geographically. How can we connect better in a global world post-COVID, living with COVID? And so I realized that when I was trying to sort of plot my experiences, which I think I was very fortunate to have globally, a lot of different things, I realized a lot of these are sort of post-rationalized and look very, very glossy and all very well to a lot of students. And they would be reasonable to say, well, thanks a lot, but that isn't our situation. And so as I was recounting all these stories to the students of various exciting projects I've done, I realized, gosh, I feel incredibly uncomfortable. I'm not the oracle here at all. And actually, most of the time, it's because I've worked with incredible people all around the world that has elevated the result of what I did. So I actually realized, a side project was that it evolved from this, which was a laterally speaking videocast. It sounds weird saying it, but podcast with images. And so I interviewed over 20 people within this 2-week period of putting the workshop together, and just had everyone from all my networks just chipping in and giving great advice to students, which I really loved. And here's just sharing a little technical thing, which sounds very geeky, but because the audio wasn't so great, I actually created this thing called Acoustic Pillow, jokingly, which was basically putting your phone on a little pillow or folded up tea towel. And I think the next slide is of Sarah from the British Museum, basically the person who curates all of the UK's best exhibitions through the British Museum. I think it's a nice icebreaker, actually, just to say, this is nuts, is this going to work? And so we had this sort of great discussion, and that meant that we removed some of the bugginess and the sort of choppy internet connection, which hopefully is better for you listening now. And it meant that with that sort of out the way, we could get to the heart of the matter, which was sort of incredible journeys through. Here we have children's manga, LGBTQ issues, fashion. They'd just done a project where they had 3D scanned ancient artifacts and made them public to the world. And so really, I feel like it's always this balance between the technical detail and the creative aspiration. And a quick shout out to Jude who basically put all these audio files together in this crazy environment of editing, which I know nothing about, but he did an amazing job. And I wanted to acknowledge that. That's very much how I get stuff done. So in conclusion, really, what I love is that on the left-hand side, we've got all these great lectures, and that's terrific. But actually on the right, there's this complement of over 20 vcasts, which you can go at judepullen.com/vcast and check out all the things that they had to say about a lot of the themes. And so in many ways, I sort of feel incredibly proud that this is something which it really is true to the saying of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And these are just a sample of some of the really diverse discussions that we had on it. So we started off in lectures, but we finished off in global discussions. So yeah, it feels relevant to be here. So thank you again, Mark and the team at PechaKucha.
Thank you very much, Jude. That's brilliant. No, I think it's a lovely, it's a lovely presentation, and really is very similar to what Sam was up to, but completely different too. And was just chatting with Astrid as well across the way here about how this, this pandemic has caused so much more creativity to come out than when we were actually professionally doing creative things. Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting and a little bit more crazy creative as well. Yeah, it's not just boring creative. It's not straightforward, not boring creative, straightforward creative. There's some really funny twists coming out too. So thank you so much for that. It's a really lovely presentation. I'm a little bit nervous of time here. We've been talking too much, Abe. Sorry, man. Thanks, Jude. Okay, 2 more presentations to go. So Morag, thank you for waiting so patiently, but that color's kept us all awake. So over to you, Abe.
Well, I think if B is the heart of darkness, then Morag is surely the heart of fluorescent colors. And I think whilst Morag has been limited in how she can travel recently, I've noticed that she's been completely turning her house inside out and making it as a kind of a mural of positive energy flowing from murals outside to bright colored shelving inside to an extension onto the garden. I walk past quite often her place. So Morag, we're very excited to hear about your adventures through these times.
Okay. All right, well, go with the slide then, please, and I'll start. This is me at the beginning. Well, actually, it's still me every evening, but I was actually doing it every day as well. And I was watching telly. I was so fatigued by watching telly. I just wanted to sleep all the time. Fortunately, I haven't turned to drink, so that was good. That's not been on the agenda. But it was just a time where I just didn't really know what to do. And so then I thought, well, actually, what I don't want to think, but I can make. And my house, I make projects about belonging, and I work with communities, and I get everybody involved in things. But actually, I lost love with my own house. All I did was work. So I started picking up projects that I'd started 2 years ago. So I started this rooftop in 2018, and then I was traveling all the time, and I abandoned it. So I just worked at making this project actually happen, just get my paintbrushes out. I just used things in the house that I already had. So after doing that, I got a bit ambitious, and I thought that I would have a load of paint projects that I would work on. But at the same time, my partner, Luke, was roped into it. He didn't have a choice. He has been working non-stop for 12 weeks, working with me on these projects. And so this list has got a little bit less, but not that many. So what is so really lucky about us is that we live above the shop. So we live above our studios. This is Luke's workshop on the right, on whatever side it is, and me on the left. And this is my lockdown outfit that I've been wearing. I'm dressed nice today, but basically I wear this all the time. And with my trusty dog, Elvis, who absolutely watches me all the time and helps me. So you can see on the left, this room on the left was there for 3 years like that. I had to give Luke his workshop, I had to move out of my own studio and put my books into this entrance to our studio. So I then wanted to make this library. I'd waited 3 years. I'd drawn it for 3 years to happen. And we just doggedly worked through making this happen every single day. Luke made a box and I painted the box, and he made a box and I painted the box. And then I thought I had to do the fireplace. So I had some tiles left from a project and I did the fireplace. But in between, I was asked to do some workshops on drawing, and I did a workshop at the Design Museum, and that was really fantastic. I talked about how the sketchbook is a safe place and about how you don't have to have preconceived ideas of what drawing is. And it was really amazing response. Over 40,000 people looked at it and also sent me all their drawings. But as we go on, the projects get bigger, and we're pulling walls down in the house now. And we just keep on working and working and working. I think now it's going to just go on and forever. But in between time, I also wanted to write down what I felt every day. So I decided to do an I am poem. So one on the 17th, I felt optimistic and fantastical. But then on another time, I felt that it wasn't time yet to go out. So I was writing words that responded to what was happening around me. Windows with rainbows in them. And I was asked, an entrepreneur, Laura, rang me from Leeds. And she said to me, Morag, we've got some placards outside. And I was desperate to do something outside. And she said, Morag, will you do a piece of artwork for frontline workers? And just so then when they walk down the road, they just feel happy, and it gives them a bit of colour. And so we had 72 hours. I had to think of the words, I had to do the piece, and then it was sent out to print, and then it got up on the streets. And then Laura Wellington, who's absolutely amazing, her company's In Good Company, she got another 7 artists to do a whole load more artworks for frontline workers. And then she got them in Leeds and Manchester and Cardiff and Bristol and London. There's some in London, and they're great. Anthony Burrell and various people. But then she decided that actually doing it on these big things were not quite what she wanted. And so she thought, why don't we do posters for the people? So she made all our posters into posters that people could put on their own houses and also give donations to charity. And it's raised £7,500 so far and people were just buying them, putting them in their houses, and they wanted to be part of this project. And then they made a beer. I actually don't drink beer, but I was very pleased to be on a beer. And then these Wood Street walls guys, Craig and Gavin, they said, did you want anything done to Laura? And Laura said, Morag, you've got that wall and on my house. This is where I'm sitting in now. This is the wall behind me in my studio. And I said, yeah, I've always wanted to paint that wall. Let's paint that wall. So we painted the wall, but what was the most amazing thing about this was actually the neighbours behind me, because I thought putting that great big bright wall in the street, would they be happy? And they loved it. They were just like, thank you so much. And the postman came up to me and he was like going, thank you so much for doing this. Another project was a stay-at-home project, which was 19 artists involved, a COVID project. And this was also to raise money. So far, they've raised 14K. And this was my poster. And I was given the words for this one, and I just decided to keep it simple, but it's meant to be illumination. But on all that, I think what is really, really, really incredible, Black Lives Matter, and it is really, really critical that things change. And I've got a really great friend, Kevin Adams, and he is showing me these amazing artists. And I think it's really, really important that we share new artists and people learn about everybody. And so I don't believe in the new normal. I think that normal is a horrible word and we shouldn't ever talk about it. And I think it's about the new now. It's about resetting, going forward, changing and making things right now. That was fast.
Bravo.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
You now. Awesome.
That was a fantastic journey, and I love that way everything is dedicated so much around the house as a kind of as a hub, and then it expands out and goes off to Leeds to be a poster here, and the energy flows out and across. But I think it's having all these. How are you going to campaign now for Black Lives Matter? Where's the next frontier of energy going to come from?
But that's where what I think for me, it's very much that that I'm a support, or I only do anything that is of worth, so it's not the people I showed there's not who I chose, and that's Kevin has chosen those people. He believes they're right, and we need to look at other people's choices and about who we think is right, and all that sort. It's taking in everybody's mindset and really understanding, listening. Listening is the biggest thing as well, to listen, to learn, to understand, and to be together, really come together from this. Not at the moment, there's a feeling of scariness where things are separating, but actually it's about coming together. And I think we really can come together, and we should be, and all, yeah, that's what I think.
That That was something that Brian and I were talking about before this, about, you know, how PechaKucha brings everybody together. Creativity brings everybody together. We don't think too much about diversity. We just come together. You know, that's the most important. Come together naturally. Astrid is shouting across from the way. But yeah, your energy is amazing. And the color, it's not just the color in your work, it's the color in your energy, which is so you know, so fantastic. Thank you so much, Morag.
Thank you.
I was only going to say, I think we can't, it's not enough to come together naturally now. We have to force things. I think there's too much, there's too much at stake. We have to listen, as you say, and we have to be conscious, and we have to deal with these huge issues that are out there, and in some way try to create a counter position.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ears and the hands seems to be what we are talking about. The mouth maybe is
definitely.
Yeah. Morag, did you need planning permission for that wall? It worried me a little bit.
Advertising.
It was
it's
a great.
Not advertising. The freehold is mine. I have the freehold on the building. When the Wood Street walls checked with me, asked me, they said, "Do I have the freehold?" And said yes. But I don't think anybody would try to paint over that. It hasn't even had graffiti.
All right. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Okay, I'm the last one, I think. I'm going to bring it home.
It's over to you, the great man himself.
Thank you so much. All right, why don't you start then, Brian, and I'll give you a little run through of what this Inspire project's been all about. So, as you know, I'm an architect over here in Tokyo, along with Astrid Klein, who's sitting just across the way from me, and Yukinari Hisayama. We've been running our practice together here in Tokyo for over 20 years. And this is one of our buildings on the epicenter of Ginza, on the major crossroads, and it's a big global showroom for Nissan. So we started PechaKucha Night in our art space called Super Deluxe. PechaKucha means the sound of chit chat in Japanese, PechaKucha. And it was a show and tell for architects and designers. But you know what we're like, we talk too much. And so we had this simple idea of only allowing 20 images shown for 20 seconds each. It started off as a one-off event in 2003, and since then it's spread to an amazing 1,234 cities, which is kind of incredible. We don't charge for the format. I think that's one of the reasons why it's spread far and wide. Whew. 20 seconds is quite long, yeah. But it's not only a format, it's a community, or it's not only a community, it's a format. And it's sort of circular. One reinforces the other, and I think that's why it's been running like this for over 17 years. And the community is a really, really important part of our network. Back in 2010, there was the earthquake in Haiti, and we'd always been wondering, with our big creative network, could we do something useful? Could we help? And this seemed a perfect time. We held a 24-hour non-stop Skype session around the world with Cameron Sinclair from Architecture for Humanity, and we raised $100,000, and along with the Ben Stiller Foundation, we built a school in Haiti. Amazing things happened. Shepard Fairey came along, and he's offered to design us a logo, which is on the left-hand side. And the school was completed in February 2011. What we didn't know, 1 month later, we were going to have the huge earthquake in Japan. And 1 month after it was finished, the school was finished. Astrid is there telling me what to say. So 130,000 buildings were totally destroyed. 250,000 were so badly damaged they had to be taken down. And this is the area that we were working in Natori, just below Sendai. 7,000 homes were destroyed in 20 minutes. The community got together, PechaKucha community got together again, and we wanted to inspire Japan. Japan was devastated at this time, and Japan had inspired the world inspires the world with fantastic design and fantastic culture. And we had a huge event. 100 cities got together on one night, and we're just to try and energize and bring Japan back. And again, we raised over $100,000 in one evening. And again, we worked with Architecture for Humanity, and we built a sports center up in along the coast. There it is there. So that was with Nike and also with Toyoito's Home for All project, which is kind of similar to the Maggie Centers projects. And with the money, we could build these homes. Home for All has been quite interesting. Astrid and I are board members on that. We've built 15 Home for Alls. These are shelters where people can get together. They're built in areas of temporary housing, and it's it makes the part of civic pride. And this is one of our projects which we built. We raised all the money ourselves for this. You can see Brian over there taking some pictures on the left-hand side. This is for young kids because there is very close to the Fukushima power station. Kids really can't play outside, so we've built this big straw hat, which is supported by these trees, and kids play inside here. Over 60,000 kids have used this space since it was built, and it's still there. So that's a little bit about the Home for All project. But with PechaKucha and Inspire, we've been capturing all the different emotions and all the happenings in this area. On the left-hand side, there's a PechaKucha presentation about what it's like to live in one of these temporary homes. And on the right, about Safecast, which is a crowdsourced radiation detection system, which is running throughout Japan. So this Inspire project really started to gain pace, and we have a fantastic PechaKucha group in Christchurch, and they've been hit by 3 massive earthquakes. And again, we rolled the PechaKucha Inspire project out there, and they said it was really very important for how their city got back together again. We've done it in Kumamoto, and we've done it in Nepal. So it seemed appropriate at this time with the global pandemic to start this PechaKucha INSPIRE the World project. And as Brogan was on earlier, she really helped initiate the first one on April the 9th in London and Manchester. And since then, we've held 23 of these around the world, just like tonight, capturing really interesting information, fantastic stories, fantastic passion, and fantastic creativity. So please check out our presentations online. There are, I think we've got over 150 presentations now up on the website, and there's more to come. So yeah, so what we've also done is we've pushed forward our development of our online PechaKucha Create. We've built a platform where you can upload 20 images, voice them, and share them. And this is being used in schools and offices around the world. PechaKucha have been adopted, and now we've given people a platform. So anybody can upload 20 images, voice them, and share them for free online. And our intern, who was actually in America, went back to Wuhan to see her parents at Chinese New Year and got trapped there for 76 days in her apartment. And through PechaKucha Create, she was able to make a PechaKucha presentation about her experiences there. And I really, you should really go and have a look at the presentation. It's fantastic. And it's also allowed us to run competitions. We're using this with the World Architecture Festival, and people can submit ideas for Isolation Transformed by uploading 20 images, voicing them, and sharing them online. They're all kept secret till the competition's finished and judged, but it's become a really, really nice way to gather fantastic ideas from around the world. So I want to thank you all for presenting this evening, all our fantastic presenters, and everybody at home who's been watching PechaKucha INSPIRE the World. Thank you all so much. I can play my, I can clap myself. There we go. Very good. So Astrid is just sitting across there, giving me instructions. I'll just give me 1 second, and I'm just going to turn off my virtual background. I better put that on just a second here. How do I do none? And I've got to do this because it's the office role. Okay. So hello.
Hey, Astrid.
Hi. Hi.
So yeah, so thank you all so much for presenting tonight. It's been a real insight into what's been happening around the world, and I've said this on quite a few other presentations. But you know, we hear a lot of news from the UK and around the world, and you know, when you get on a call like this, it seems completely different. This is the real news. This is the real information. What we see on TV doesn't seem quite right somehow. There's so much passion and energy here. It's amazing.
You're all gone quiet.
Thanks, Mark.
You're on mute, Steve.
with your incredible energy to spread the word.
Thank you all so much. Hey, I think at this point we're going to do a pic. Brian, can you give us a picture? Should we do a picture? We're going to do a little banzai, Japanese sort of thing like that, and take a picture of everybody.
Yes,
I'm going to take my mask down for a minute.
In PechaKucha tradition, we
break the rules, breaking the rules. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Banzai.
Nice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, do you want to say a few closing remarks? Because it's getting late now.
I think that's it. You need to get back to your children. London is evening is coming about. It's been a fantastic journey. So much work, so many ideas from so many places. So much feedback.
That's me. Sorry.
And see you next time.
Thanks, Abe. Hope to see you in London soon. Thank you, everybody. Really nice to meet you. Thanks, everybody out there. Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks so much. Bye, YouTube. Bye, PechaKucha. See you guys next time.
Zoom.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.